Okay. How do you tell you're being recorded? It tells me. All right, that's fine. Click here for more privacy info. No, I don't need to do that. Okay, so we're being recorded. And do you see it being recorded, Bill, on your side, or you can't tell?
Yes.
Yeah, it's being recorded. Okay. All righty. So we're starting our first session. Typically, we have found that it takes 2 sessions to complete a release. I was talking earlier today with I think it was Jeremy, as others on the development call, that and Meta, hopefully you'll be okay with this, but we'd like to actually expand this training to all customers, all partners, if you will, so that we can broaden the audience, if you will, to a much larger set. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. How would you feel, I guess, having your customers hear this at the same time, or would you prefer not to have them in there? It's just kind of tough for us to do 2 sessions. We'd rather do it all in one session, if that makes any sense.
Understood. I think this would be pretty over. I'm going to just speak on behalf of the team here, so I'm sure I'll take a lashing. But speaking on behalf of them and our districts, I think it might be overwhelming for them. So we take, and I shouldn't say we, I'm not going to take ownership. Rachel does a good job of kind of simplifying down the things that apply to them directly and send them out like a little up-to-date list, like these are the enhancements. Right. We have Ashley and Linda on here, which is just fine. We're glad that they're on there. But I think we're probably good to just I don't want to say closed door policy, but to keep it simple. Yeah. And then we can relate to our districts. So.
Right, and I think that's fair enough. I think, in terms of what customers come, when the customer is managed through a partner, then it's the partner's prerogative, right? So that's how I would treat that. Yes. I think in North Carolina, we directly support those customers. So, and again, right. Some of those customers, I agree with you, may get more or less. There's generally one person at each site that generally kind of knows what's going on. So maybe it would be helpful to have that. So it's something we should think about. But anyway, so we're starting with 213 today, 1099 forms for vendors. That's a low number, which means it's been hanging around a long time. And again, I'm going to give a high-level view of it. And again, this is for Roxanne and Dan to sort of jump in as well. But the goal here was to sort of work on a couple areas, but in particular, districts seem to be having other systems that might be paying certain invoices external to our system, but they still need to get the 1099s sent out to those vendors, but yet the transactions aren't really churning through our system. So that was one of the main goals, was to allow them to have a file that they could then get from the other system and then bring it in and utilize, if you will, our 1099 facility. So that's one of the things that we were trying to attempt to do. So what we did is we created in the payables area, and I'm in the wrong area right now, under tasks, right? Well, it's right here, 1099 workspace. And so the workspace can be used now for both bringing in data from a file as well as getting data from the vendor ledger. We haven't necessarily taken away what the system could do before. We've really added to the system, giving you, I guess, multiple options, if you will. So at this point, Dan, you maybe can help me with this, or Roxanne, do they have to use the workspace and now to do any 1099s, or could they just print 1099s? Because right now, my understanding is that this 1099 miscellaneous K12E report object only reads data from this detail table. Is that correct?
Then that's correct. Yes.
Right. So there is no
Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay. So there is no other way to print a 1099 except to go through the workspace. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. The old report is still out there.
It's not on the menu. It doesn't look like it's on the menu, right? I mean, I don't see it anywhere on the menu. Let me just double check, but I'll type in 1099. No, that's just a heading, detail.
Yeah, it was removed. Yeah, it was removed from the menu.
Right. So what this means to us is that you must change the procedures that you used last year to use the workspace. The workspace basically is where you'll go in, you'll bring in all the detail from the ledger, you'll review it, and then you process it out to the detail table, and that's what the forms and the mag media run against. Is that correct? Dan?
Yes.
So in essence, you left this old mag media is there, which does run against the ledger directly, but yet we don't have the report that runs across. So I guess we should think about the fact that they're inconsistent. You know what I mean? There's an inconsistency between having the printer report and then the mag media. And so anyway, I just pointed this out. But the way the workspace works, I'll go into that. I have data in there now. I guess I could delete a record. Can I clear all the records, delete all lines? Yeah. So as you come in here, I guess the first button you would do is either update from the ledger, right, or import a file. Is that correct? Or manually data enter one. You have all three of those choices.
You could do all three, yeah.
Right. If we update from the ledger, it just says what year are you doing, and we'll say 2015, and it processes through. I'm not getting a scroll bar, Dan, here, so maybe something that we might want to think about. Usually you'd see a scroll bar going across. And I'm not sure why. I'm just getting two. I'm in ZZ School District Dev. I haven't really done a lot of testing with this, so maybe there's only two that make sense for this particular vendor, because we probably don't have any vendors marked to 99. So you're bringing in miscellaneous 07. Typically, almost all miscellaneous 07 is a miscellaneous 03, so we must have been doing some testing. Now, Dan, just to confirm, this data is brought in based on check date for 2015. Is that correct?
Yes, on the payment date, the day that it was completely closed and paid. Yes.
So that's what this date here represents?
Yes.
Okay. So all these dates always should fall within the 2015 time frame.
And that's the exact same way as it was actually before. It's always been on the payment date.
Always. Well, that's because that's the law of the land, right? That's
right.
That's the way it works.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us about this error section here.
Okay. The error section will throw errors for you depending on mostly on the data that you're bringing in via the import.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got ledgers that have a bad address or are missing document number or are missing 1099 information like the account number or the 1099 amount, those errors will show in the error message box.
And this checkbox will be lit. So it might say something like on a bad vendor or something, right?
Right.
Right. Now what you're supposed to do is go fix whatever you can. Is that what you're supposed to do, and then you just clear the error either manually or what? What are you supposed to do, I guess?
You go and it'll give you a detail on the error message, and you can go and fix it manually. The error message actually pop up when you do the process step, not necessarily the import steps. So when you go to process it to push it over into the detailed table,
that's when the errors occur.
That's when it goes through all the error checking to make sure you have all the information you need to have a proper record for reporting.
So the detail just went over there at this point. So let me ask you a question. Just so I understand this and everybody else on the call understands it, if I go back to the workspace, what happens if I just don't realize I did this? I run this guy again and I process again. Do I double dip my data?
Go ahead. That would be a good one to show how the errors.
Okay, there you go. Get an error.
Right, and it'll come back and it'll tell you
duplicate
record.
And if I clear errors, and process, it's still
going to keep doing the same thing to you.
Okay, so
it already exists there.
All right.
Now, here's another thing that you haven't touched on yet, Andrew, is the import. When you're doing the import, after you've already updated from the vendor ledger entries, you can import at the same time with those entries in there. Say you're importing, you want to manually do a spreadsheet on vendors that aren't in the system and you want to populate them, and you've already done the load here, you can import it at the same time and have them here.
Right.
So
in other words, you can mix and
workspace.
match is what you're saying.
Yeah,
you can mix and match in the workspace stuff from your ledger, which is your vendors you're keeping track of, plus stuff that's coming to you from another subsystem. Maybe it's the system that's doing your student activities, as a good example. That's a typical example there. So you can get an output from that file or that QuickBooks, whatever the heck it is, import it all in here, and because it's all under one federal ID submission to the government. So I understand that. So it all becomes one big blob. You review it, you check it out. There's no reports per se here. The reports, I think, are somewhere else. But bottom line, I'm going to just delete this data now so I don't mess myself up. So then it posts to the detail. And this detail now I thought there was a way to filter it by vendor. Is it filtered by? Oh, it is filtered by year there. I see. So, and I'm in the newer version. I know that in the 15th.
Yeah, I just did that this morning.
I know.
So,
Just for everybody to know, unfortunately, I kind of asked the IT department to move my standard ZZ School District Dev into the test environment so I can be in the test system, which has a complete 15 release and nothing that we've done from 16. Unfortunately, Dan's already added a feature that we kind of already saw in 16 that we may advance early, which is that when you open up this detail screen, it's just filtering for you based on your work date for that year. So if my work date changed to, let's say, 1/1/16, then it would filter for the year 2016. So it's just a way, because obviously this is going to be year after year after year of 1099 detail is what this represents. So this data really is just there. I know these were added as well, but they're also available right now off the menu, but I'll just kind of show them from here. So here, the report, if you print this guy, 2015, I guess.
it's going to look very unimpressive because it's meant to be printed against the pre-printed forms.
Okay.
The
That's
government
fine.
forms.
That's fine. That's fine. We don't have to be over impressed. I mean, we're very simple people here. Anyway, all right. So that's the vendor number, obviously, and it's in box 7, right? I mean, we don't know that, but I kind of know that because I know I've only been doing 1099s for 3,000 years. It feels like. Anyway, so that's all good. Although that was box 3. I think this is box 7. So. And then the mag media is, again, the same thing. So you can trigger the mag media. The benefit of triggering it here is it will default the year automatically. Same thing here, I suspect. So if you're in 16, it will default 16 and so forth. Is that correct, Dan?
Yes.
Okay, good. And that's the reason why I wanted him to put it on the menu, on the actions of this actual workspace, so the year could be defaulted in. Here, you'll be responsible for you run this to make sure you put the right year. And he's doing it anyway because he senses the year we're in because he's sensing that. So we're probably good in either case. So I guess the question is this mag media here. This mag media, if you did run this, it would run today in this release. It's going to run only on the ledger. So it will not pick up, if you will, from the detail. The detail, again, can include both data coming from a file as well as from the ledger. And that's really the delta, what we're trying to achieve here. I think over time, Dan, I think we should remove the old one and then just remove the K12E from both places there. We don't need to show that because that's just the way we do it. So I'm just giving you feedback on my side. Roxanne, Dan, anything else we want to talk about before we move on to the next work order?
Well, the only other issue that I would say is perhaps we might have been premature in taking off the 1099 MISC, which works directly off the ledgers in case
in this release.
Some folks want to do it old school in this
old
release.
School. Yes, so that may be a menu change that we just do in 15 only. You may want to consult with Ben on that and see if they want to do that. So that sounds fine with me. It's just putting right above this, the other one on the 15th as it goes out, because the menu suites are still kind of open to be fixed. You know what I mean? We can't fix programming. We can fix menu suites.
Right, and the report is still there. It still runs, and it still does the logic the way it always did.
Well, if you can talk to Ben directly about that, I'm fine with that. All right, good. Any questions from the peanut gallery on 213? Does that seem interesting? Okay,
actually, I just have a question. I am unable to see the presentation, and I've tried several times. Am I the only one who can't see what's going on?
Yeah, you're the only one.
No, actually, Deborah couldn't either, but she's over here sitting with me. Sorry, James, you don't have that luxury.
I can stop presenting and re-present. So let me just do that, okay?
Or I can try and re-add you, James, or like invite you if you log off, and then I can try and invite you in.
Okay.
Actually, that usually works when I have that problem.
All right, then let's, James, you go off and Melissa lets you in, then you're in like Flint.
I was going to say, yeah, that sounds better. I trust her better.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'm getting off the phone.
You were being misled.
No, I'm seeing firsthand.
Trust her as far as I can throw her. Anyway, all right, so I'm moving on to 714 while those guys work on these technical excitements. So on the vendor card, no, I'm not doing 714. I lied. 372. Okay, I'm on the wrong piece of paper. I feel like I'm like the notes and I'm going all wrong here. Validate. I'm not going to show this, but evidently we were able to type in some district somewhere typed in less than 9 characters in the social number, and they really didn't want that to happen. So we went ahead and agree that that shouldn't happen. If you do type 9 pure digits, it will put the hyphens in for you. If you put 8 digits, it'll fail. And that's a change that I think we hadn't made. We were doing the automatic formatting for you, but we hadn't tested for below 9. So now we are testing for below 9. I know the reason why the system allowed less than 9 before, so it is something to be aware of. If you do hire somebody and it's kind of pending, sometimes you hire somebody and the Social Security number is actually pending. I'm not sure the government works that way anymore, but if it did, you can't type the word pending because it's less than 9 characters. So that's, I think, why it allowed 9 characters before, less than 9 characters before, because we would write the word pending, and then it just had to be resolved by the time you get to the print of the W-2. All right, Melissa, you're up.
Yes, I am.
Well,
Before she's up, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure, yes, ma'am.
Okay, there was one thing that we missed. With the security in the additional field setup, it also needs to be marked, whoever is doing the 1099s, it needs to be marked allow edit 1099 detail.
Okay, all right.
So just as a side note.
All right, so what we're talking
Otherwise they
about
can't do it.
is you're saying in here, additional setup fields. We must have 1,000 in here at this point.
I know.
Allow edit to 99 detail. So when you say edit, you really literally mean edit of the detail. So as I hit OK, now you're talking about me being able to come back to because I noticed I couldn't edit it before. You're telling me that I can go to this detail screen and I can actually edit that amount and go 2270 and it will take it.
Yes, absolutely. Correct.
Okay. All right. So totally messing with data, but that's cool. That's kind of not a bad thing. We're trying to make this, 1099s is not like the same thing as your audit data in your general ledger. So thank you, Roxanne, for that little important piece of information. Anything else you can think of before I move on?
I think that's it.
All right, social number I handled. 492, we're on to ACA now, Land. So I'm going to payroll, I'm going to tasks, and I'm going into regulatory reporting, and I'm going to ACA reporting. But is this where I should start, or should I start somewhere else?
Go to the employee.
I'm heading to the employee.
This is going to be a very fast overview, because otherwise we'll be here for an hour. So from the employee, navigate.
Should I pick you up, and if you put any data in for yourself?
Yeah, you can use me.
Okay, and to navigate. Okay, we have this here. They were going to move this somewhere else, right? We decided. But go ahead.
So there's two parts. There's the offer record, and then there's the coverage.
Okay, what is the offer record?
The offer record basically denotes the type of coverage and when it started for the employee.
Okay.
So I may just have one line there that says, maybe it started on 1/1/2015 and it was code 1A, and that's what I had for the entire year. 1A is a qualifying offer coverage.
Okay, and these are codes that are regulated by the government, right? These
are IRS codes, right?
Yeah, so everybody will have the same codes.
There's Series 1 codes, which is what you're looking at there, and then the 2 fields over is the safe harbor.
What's that mean?
Those are Series 2 codes from the IRS, so depending on the level of coverage and depending on the value of the first offer of coverage field, you may or may not need to put something in the safe harbor field. So anyway, close this.
Do we have to have like a degree in ACA to do this? It sounds like.
Yeah, that's why this is going to be a very fast overview, because we're not going to, like I said, we'll be here for an hour if we go into the nitty gritty. So just close this.
Yes, ma'am. I'm done.
Go back to ACA, go to coverage.
You're on it. All right.
So coverage, this is where you will list the employee and any relatives that are covered by that employee's benefits.
Okay.
It has a start date and an end date, and the important thing here is the relative code.
Okay, relative code being this is our table, though, correct?
This is our table, but there's a type field in the relative code.
Yes, the type field being
whether or not it's spouse, child.
It's this, right? It's this guy here, isn't it?
Yeah. So go hit advanced.
It's really the most important field is this field here.
Right, exactly. Is that type? So for ACA, we only care about spouse and child.
Okay.
So if in your relative table, if your district wants to track every single relative that employee possibly has, that's totally fine. But the only ones we care about for ACA reporting are spouse and child.
Gotcha. And these fields are also used part and parcel to our entire benefit admin system as well. So we are utilizing exactly the same setups, which is good to know. Okay. And we got, and literally, is Paul Bunyan your son? I mean, is that true?
Paul Bunyan is, yes, my son,
okay.
Born in 1910.
Okay, good. Gotcha. No comment.
Yeah. You have aged well.
Thank you.
Anyway. So I see you got a son, and he sort of stopped doing something, then he started back up, I guess. I'm not sure what you're trying to show there, but
I was just testing different things with how the ACA stuff gets populated. But so anyway, the point of this page here is to note the employee, when they started their coverage, and then any relatives, and then when they started and if they stopped coverage. So
and that's because the 1095 actually gives 12 buckets for the actual
exactly
month,
right.
So you have to, so if it's on the 5th of the month, do you consider it to be the whole month? I mean, for 1095.
I think the IRS, what did they say? I don't remember what they said. I think no, it's not the whole month.
Oh, okay.
I think it's up to the 10th. If it's past the 10th, it's considered the whole month.
I see.
But before that, it's not, or something.
Gotcha. Well, whatever it is, it was incorporated in our design, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so close this.
Done.
So then under summary, this is kind of just a blown out version of what the 1095 would look like for this particular employee.
This is fancy.
It basically takes the information from the offer record, and then it takes information from the employee coverage record, and then gives us a full year picture of what happened.
Do this in QuickBooks. Okay.
This is, you get here by running a generate function, which is back on the menu.
So in other words, let me just be clear about this. So me coming into this, if the screen was blank, I could just press this button?
You could, yes, and it would generate just for this employee.
But more efficiently do it at the menu level for everybody, then you can come in and look at these to your heart's content.
Yes, right.
So if I click it now, will it ask me a question or?
No, it should just do something.
Do something? Yeah, it seems to be doing something, but okay, then I think it's regenerated already.
When you do generate ACA detail, where's that pulling that from as far as is the user putting this stuff in? Can they put it into the ERC? I know I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but.
Right now, we don't have pages on the ERC. It's coming from that ACA offer table that we just saw and the ACA coverage table. Those are the only two tables that feed this big summary page here.
Okay, great. So that's being put in then by the full user, by the payroll or HRP. Okay.
Yes, and we have, if you want to use K12 for ACA reporting, like maybe starting next year, there's a lot more functionality coming. Like there's a workspace for to figure out full-time, part-time after payroll is run. You'll post your payroll and then you can go into the workspace. It'll bring all the employees in and try to figure out based on the number of hours that have been posted if they're considered full-time or part-time. It'll read benefit admin setups, and then when you post that workspace, it'll create the coverage offer records, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so you can close this.
Thank you very much. Yes. Now do we go to the menu?
Now you can go back to the menu.
All right, there on the menu then. All right, so where is it again? I keep losing it. It's right there.
Right there. So then after you get your ACA coverage and offer records set up on each employee, then we would run ACA generate, which is the function that blows everything out for the 12 months.
Right.
That's where you can filter by specific employees or not, or run it for the whole batch of them.
Okay.
Then the next thing you would do is run ACA export.
Well, what does this first thing do, though? What did this do, this guy here?
Well, it's not quite finished, but that's the workspace that you would pull people into after each payroll or monthly or whatever to figure out if they hit the full-time, part-time status.
If I click on it now, what will happen?
Oh, you'll get stuff.
But
I don't know how far along it is.
So what you're saying is it may be more complete in the 16th release or advanced from 16? I see.
Right.
So
right now, what we're focusing on is just generating the XML file for people that are using Nelco to print their 1095s.
Okay, that's the focus now.
Right now, the focus is we get a file from everybody's benefit provider. We would import it in using a template, and that template import would create the ACA coverage records on each employee. We're working on a routine to generate the offer records for each employee. We haven't finished that part yet.
Okay.
But then you would run ACA generate, which would blow everything out for 12 months, and then you would run ACA export, which would give us the XML file, which we would upload to Nelco.
To Nelco, right. And so we're going to have to give instructions on how everybody connects to Nelco and how that works. I mean, is that something that they have
most
to pay
people,
for? Or?
Yeah, Nelco is a pay for per form they charge. It's not a ton of money per form. I think it's just a couple cents or something. But yeah, it's a service that they offer, and they do all the mailings for the 1095 and the 1094 to all the employees. They offer a web portal for the employees so they can reprint. And Nelco will also do the electronic filing that is required by the government for employers.
So we're not doing the electronic filing.
We are not.
Because we're relying on Nelco, our partner.
Nelco is doing the whole thing.
Okay. All right.
We're going so far as to generate the XML file and then handing it off to them, and then they do the rest.
Okay. And that's what the ACA export is the XML file.
Yes.
And to click on that, what happens then? Just calendar year?
Right. You have to plug in your employer.
What the heck is all that?
That's my testing.
Okay.
I was doing acceptance testing for Nelco. Then you have to filter an employer number.
Okay.
You always want to pick Nelco at this point.
Okay.
Format, and then you would pick the PA for the employer. I mean, most people are only going to have one employer, but I've got test data. And then you would say OK.
Then you hit OK, and you
then
allow.
Ask for the path. Oh, no, sorry. There's a setup that tells it where the path is.
Right, so it doesn't have the right path in because it doesn't have my S:\Melissa ACA file in XML. But that's where the XML file goes, and then you go on to Nelco, you sign up, you upload, and voila, it's all there.
And and then you take it away from Nelco's point of view. You can, when you upload, you can see all the files for what all the forms for the employees and all kinds of stuff. So
the 1095C summary report's just internal for you, just to see kind of what your system is doing. I mean, is that like a facsimile?
That's actually the 1095. Yeah.
But it's not submittable to. Is it submittable?
Well, we haven't really updated it, I don't think. Make sure you set your filters.
Yeah,
you're in dev, not test, so. 1095C summary.
I'm in dev. Yeah.
So make sure you, pick the, and then if you want to filter on just me, for the employee filter. And then you can preview it or.
Oh my.
So that's
the real deal.
That's the 1095.
But again,
and Nelco has a little different look to it, but that's pretty much it.
Well, we didn't do this with the idea that they would really use these to hand to employees. We want them to use Nelco. Why is this not good enough? I'm just asking.
Well, Nelco handles corrections, which are kind of a different deal, and there's also electronic filing, which Nelco handles, which we didn't. We'd have to. I mean, the IRS didn't publish the electronic file specs until like the very last minute, so we're already kind of down to the wire with getting the XML file done. So maybe next year or the year after we can start printing our own 1095C. I don't know what the plan is,
but by that time they'll overturn the entire law. So.
Well, yeah, exactly, and we won't be doing this anymore.
All these options will be removed from the menu.
Yeah, right.
So, coverage workspace. What do we do there?
That's new. That's what Mohammed is actually working on that. So this is where we get a template file from everybody's benefit provider. You can import it in and it will create the coverage records without having to do it manually.
I see. Nice. Very good. Okay.
This is still kind of we're doing more development on the 2009 side at this point because most of the people that are using us for the ACA filing this year are 2009 customers.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, that's a heck of a lot of stuff, and we're still obviously in progress, but it's not trivial, as you guys can see. We've been busy, not me personally, but Melissa has been massively busy, and Mohammed and
actually Mohammed's been. I keep bugging him.
Yeah, thank God he's near you.
Are you done?
Yeah. He's typing as fast as he can. So I guess, Ohio, do you have any questions about ACA at this moment, or do you want to just sort of study this a little bit once this gets into your test environment and kind of get back to us?
But definitely appreciative of the work that's been done. Yeah, that's good. Rachel, how about you? You've been dealing more closely with. Nope.
You're
Yep,
muted.
no questions.
And Melissa is going to do some webinars, which will
there's
not be quite so high
there's
level.
two next week. Yeah, I'll spend a little more time. One I think next week on I think it's on Wednesday is for 2009, and then there's another one on Thursday for 2013 customers. But at this point, I don't know that we have any 2013 customers that are using Nelco for their reporting this year. That everything may change next year, but yeah. So the two webinars that are going to be next week are basically focusing on how we're generating the XML file and how we're getting the benefit data imported to create the coverage records, how we'll create the offer records, how we create the XML file for filing with Nelco.
Okay, great.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Melissa.
On this next one, I don't know where this is. I'm not sure. I'm looking for this report. Employment statistics report. Create a new current employment statistics report. Does anybody know what that is? Current employment statistics. Oh, okay. Federal reporting. Oh, so this is another federal report. Does anybody know much about this report? Where is it? I don't know where it is. It's federal reporting. This is new, right? This is a new report? Which counts by months, posting date. Do I have to put a posting date?
I think this is something North Carolina schools needed because they do a month statistics report that they send in.
Okay.
And it needed gender counts and stuff. We could get part of it with the EEO5
report,
I think. Yeah. But it wasn't giving them everything at some point. So
I'm just not sure what that's telling them. Year 2015, January. I just don't get exactly what that purpose of that was. But anyway, by month. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So if I did it like this, maybe it makes more sense.
The counts of people being, yeah.
It's hard to believe we have so few people. I wonder what it's based on. You know what I mean? It's like you think there'd be more people that work for ZZ School District Dev. I don't know.
Probably not that haven't been paid recently. It's mainly just me and you and
I see.
Yes, the people that's been paid and what number of female, male.
Gotcha. Okay. So there might be worth looking at that just to see maybe your districts might be interested in some of these analytics. So it's just something to take a look at once it's loaded and test and play with that. All right, 669, Ohio, EMIS test staff workspace test button, add validation logic enhancement to the EMIS staff workspace. Do you guys know about this? Because you probably ordered this, so I am just curious. EMIS. Is it EMIS here? No, it's in HR. It's in HR, I guess.
No, EMIS was there. EMIS.
No, but it didn't seem like we had the staff workspace.
You have to go up to your search bar and type in EMIS.
Well, but we should be able to find it in a logical place, should we not?
Well, it's
it shouldn't
under
be
financial. It's under the financial.
Right, in Ohio.
And right there, financial, up.
Staff
up.
workspace.
Yeah.
This is staff, correct?
Correct.
And so what were you doing here, Holly?
I have to pull the work order open. I don't remember all the details, but...
It says add validation routine for the test button on the EMIS staff workspace. See document 669 EMIS workspace validation for validation information. So we were doing some more checking. I know that.
Right. It was doing some more checking, and it would display errors there on where you got the errors code.
Right. Let me just see if I can find out. Hold on. Why is it not switching? I was just like, anybody have that? It's probably attached to Bill's email. For some reason my Outlook just froze, so I don't know if it's attached. If anybody has that, bring it up. But otherwise, we'll move on. Ooh, I think my whole computer's just did some freaky something. Okay, am I live again? No. You guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. We're here.
Yes.
Okay. All right, it's coming up now. I don't know what just happened. Yeah, Bill, on your email you sent, Was there attachment of this work order 669? No, I don't see anything on that. So we need to somehow know what 669 was about, because it's just a little too vague for us in this write-up. So this is good feedback for Bill to know that we really don't know enough from that. It says see document, but we have nowhere to see that document. 714, we added a field, and I think, Dan, you worked on this, if I'm not mistaken. It was a pretty straightforward thing. We added a new checkbox, I believe, on the payments tab, bottom right, W-9 on file, correct? The question is, did we do anything algorithmically about that? Let's just see. Add a flag to the vendor card to indicate they have a W-9 on file. Then add this to the check register report. Okay, so you added it to the check register report, and it prints. And that was a way for, hey, I just printed all these checks. Do I have all of my W-9s on file? And so that's what we did there. And I think we made that only visible for U.S. companies. We made this field auto disappear for our Canadian brethren. So anyway, any questions on that? That was just a way for us to help the AP department keep track of W-9s that they need to get in. W-9s, I think, are required on all vendors these days in this country. Is that pretty much correct? No answers. You guys.
They were moving in that direction, but I don't think they did. They were talking about that was actually part of the Affordable Care Act, that they were supposed to get it even on corporations, but I think they backed off that.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. This last option we went back and forth on, I think, but we've got that working. We do have a functionality. We haven't demonstrated it all that much in all of our sessions that we've done previously with Meta, but we do have a pretty nice facility to count your fixed assets each year or twice a year on a handheld, generates a CSV, bring the CSV into a workspace. We then can determine if we actually recognize that fixed asset. If not, we can help you create it on the fly. We also can just tell you that it's moved from room A to room B, or just fact that we've counted it and it's still in the same room it was last time. All that type of physical accounting, if you will, operationally of your fixed assets is something I think we do a really nice job with. We've been enhancing it a little bit in this release, and one thing that we just added was just add to the fixed asset card the last date that we counted that asset. So it's a nice field that I think we put on the list page. I just don't remember that, Dan, real quick, but we probably should have put it on the list page. I know it's on the card. Did we stick it over here as well? Do you remember? Yeah, there it is, last inventory date. Yeah, so basically during the posting process, it will go ahead in the, and I think it's in the, it's right here. So this date gets updated when you post to tell us when the last time I counted that asset. Small little change, but kind of nice to have. Okay, for 848, I have some printouts on 848, more details of 848. So again, what we're doing here is setup screens, checking setup screens, retirement reporting authority code, Alberta. So it looks like it's an Alberta change we made. Looks like to me. And Ohio. Yeah, I don't know. We're circling different things in Ohio as well. Let's see. Current air check online does checking for retirement contributions, but only if the employer retirement payroll control field for the Pennsylvania payroll setup field has a value. Change the check requirements so it works for all states. Add functionality for earnings contributions not balanced. Looking for extraneous missing retirement category codes. So we're just adding logic and functionality. We had more in PA. We hadn't really broadened it to all of our retirement platforms in the Air Check Online functionality, and that's what 848 was about, was to try to say, Pennsylvania is important, but they're not the only game in town. Let's test everybody's integrity of the retirement data as we're doing our Air Check Online routine. So it'll be interesting in Ohio whether you find that it gives you information that helps you solve problems, but of course if it's giving you false negatives, we want to know about that as well. So just keep that in mind. I'm not going to demonstrate anything beyond just saying what I just said, unless anybody else has got a question. We just had a dropped off account code on a report. Typically that's coming from our good friends in Worcester in Maryland with their gigantic account string. So again, we're always fixing reports that get reported by them. So nowadays you can have pretty much a very long account string and pretty much all the reports are handling them, I think. 1004, need a flag to signify a restriction against changing W4 data enhancement. This is, I think, an important feature. So let's go to first the user card, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm going to go to users, bring up myself, and go here. And I'm looking for something called W2. Oh, this is the W4 data. No, I'm wrong. This is not a setup at the user level. I'm completely leaving you. I'm thinking of a different issue. This is something that I think.
This is the field on the tax auth info.
Yep, I'm on it. I got it. I remember it now. Took me a while. All right, so in the tax auth info, we added a field called something. Let's see. Oh, it's way over here.
Locked.
Yeah, locked. Maybe, but not blocked. Not to be confused with blocked, by the way. You know, because locked and blocked are not the same thing. All right, let's kind of expand things so everybody can see. Okay, so here's what you got. You've got special paperwork that's made maybe the person income tax exempt. Okay, so by locking it, what we're really doing is primarily for people that are using our self-service system, we're taking the ability away from that particular person to edit that data. So once it's in a lock, it's basically saying that the payroll department controls it because it's requiring some special regulations and so forth. We're not going to let you just flip around on your own. So that's kind of what that was for. And I think you had an example for that in Canada too, didn't you, Linda? Is that why?
No, actually, Hampton City asked for it in Rowan, and I'd never heard of it before. But apparently, the IRS can lock your withholdings, and say you can't change them until further notified. So it's kind of like a garnishment, but not quite. Just locking down what they can withhold. So
gotcha.
They want. So that's some way to know that person has.
So if you're a family of 4, let's say, you can't go higher than 4 by order to the employer.
Yes.
And so by allowing the employee to go beyond 4, obviously would cause could put that in jeopardy. So if we do lock, I just want to show you. So if we do lock this guy, and we come in here and we walk casually up here and change this to 10, the system won't let you do it. So you have to actually take it off of this, and then I think you might be able to.
Right.
Hey, Linda, I'm curious. Is that an order that comes to their employer from the IRS, or how do they get notification that that's locked?
Apparently, it's a notification that comes from the IRS.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of it before until Rowan brought it up, actually, and then Hampton City brought it up also.
It's a form from the IRS. It's just one sheet form that they've sent to the employer.
Okay, so this.
And
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What really prompted it a long time ago for the IRS to do it was when you would have bonus payouts. A lot of employees would go ahead and change their taxes and then go back before they had like supplemental rates and things like that.
Sure.
And anything else of those type of payments. So the IRS took, initiative and said, no, you're not going to do this. So they started sending out these forms to keep people in check, basically, is what it is.
Okay, so 2 questions.
A simple way to put it.
You would obviously use it then if you got a letter from the IRS, but quick question, would you use this because like most of our districts here in Ohio, they're sending those W4 adjustments to the ERC through an approval process to their payroll department. So you wouldn't necessarily need to use that lock then if they're doing some approvals on that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, keep in mind too, though, that going through the approval process, that means that if the payroll person has 100 approvals that they need to review, they're not necessarily going to remember that this one employee XYZ is not allowed to have any changes on their on their tax
they'll just approve it because they're busy and time is of the essence. So the lock is a way. The payroll departments wanted this lock in those situations to protect themselves, quite honestly. So it's not. So that's kind of the thought process. So if you do lock it, then they can't change it. They have to send an email in or whatever. So let's say they're allowed to have up to 4 and they want to go to 3. Well, that's obviously legitimate, but unfortunately we can't really know that ahead of time. So the thought process would be that they would just kind of have to fill out more of a manual W-4, and it has to get sort of processed kind of an exception basis, which I think is fair for these kinds of exceptions.
Okay, great. Thanks for the explanation.
Okay, in 1048, print W-2s by locality. My suspicion is this relates to you guys, but I could be wrong. Locality filter text box is added to the request page. So I think what we're saying is, and is this in the generate? Where is this? Is the W-2 4-up sealer? All right, so I'm just trying to find out what we're doing here. So the folder sealer, I guess it's this guy here. And we've added a locality filter. Okay. So tell me who knows about this one, what we're doing here.
I do, but only based on what Roxanne and Dan told me.
I was just gonna say, is Dan on? He's not on today.
Because it's adding the ability, it looks like, to sort it by locality. So it's an option now down here, local county, and further filter. So 2 different possibilities. So clearly the idea is that I want to do just one locality maybe at a time. Does that make sense? I mean,
yes, that's what it is. Yes, that is absolutely what it is.
For Ohio, Andrew, we have some municipalities, some cities that aren't filing magnetic media file for their city stuff on a yearly basis. So, like if we had a local city and you had of your 400 employees, 20 that paid into one city, you were having to send a copy of their W-2s along with your annual reconciliation to them. But what we were having to do was print those off on plain paper through state software because we didn't have any other way to do it. Go find those employees, cut those out.
So it's purely a logistic issue, right?
Exactly, yeah. So from here, we can now go and say, okay, I want the city of Delaware. So any employee who has the city of Delaware, we can print those now off with this locality filter and just have a set by that. And they can print them off in a plain paper and send them with their annual reconciliation.
Totally understand it. Totally understand. So that just makes it so if the person's in 2 localities in the year, they still would print, right? And that they might print in 2 piles. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we don't care if one person has 3 municipalities. We don't care. We got to send the W-2 to them, and that W-2 is complete with all 3 municipalities.
Right.
So this is much appreciated for Ohio.
Good.
And whoever did work on that, we're very appreciative of that.
Well, probably Muhammad.
That's Mr. Muhammad. His keyboard is melting over here because he's
the man. Yeah,
so much stuff going through his.
Does he have even words on his keyboard anymore? Can you actually read any of the letters?
So.
Mine's pretty bad myself, I must admit. Okay, good. So work order 1057, the fixed asset inventory by location. See highlights. We basically were having a problem where it was including disposed assets, and that didn't make any sense. Why are we showing assets by location? Here's all the assets in the high school. Well, if I've disposed of those assets, do I have to really see them, please? And we hadn't really picked up on that, and so we now do pick up on that if you click on that checkbox. So in this report, fixed assets, reports, inventory by location, you now have a checkbox that Dan built for us to say exclude disposed assets, and that took care of that. That was requested a while back, just took us a while to get to it. I apologize for whoever asked that because we did take some time to get to that, but we did get to it eventually, which is always better than never. 1141 employee leave detail report. Add group by options. Okay, this is something that happened sort of outside of my purview. I'm going to the HR department now, of course, to leave administration. And this report we're talking about is the employee leave detail, which is generally this one right here. And we have some more grouping by choices now. So we can group this by employee location and or cause of absence. Not sure why that was needed, but I'm sure somebody wanted it. And we also, okay, no, that's it. That's pretty much it. So I was looking at the next thing. So that was pretty much that. Any questions on that? But that's, I think I would invite you guys to try with those two new groupings and see if that's interesting to people. Probably will be. Employee leave detail report. Okay, I've talked about that. Okay, 1143 EMIS again. Load of CK records. Enhancement. Holly, you're on. Holly's going,
Yeah.
what the hell's going on?
I know. It's like that was probably 6 months ago.
I expect you to retain everything. Anyway, all right, here we go. Are we in the financial?
Yeah, it's in the financial.
Okay, so you're in the CK record. The CK record is which record again?
The staff workspace.
Oh, that's the staff. I know. You're not in the financial. You're in the staff.
Yeah, it's staff.
Okay, the CK is the staff employment.
Correct.
Okay. And ended in the prior period. So it
Yeah,
basically says we were
right.
having problems, it sounds like, so we must have made some changes.
Yeah, we did. People who were, I think, whose job ended the last year, but needed to be pulled in for this year because they ended last year, but they're not employed this year, but they needed to be counted.
Okay.
So they're now being
Properly counted.
yes.
So that was what we learned from our feedback from you guys at Meta, and that's what we have solved. Is that correct?
I believe yes.
Does that sound right to you guys? They're all agreeing. I can see. They're just all on mute.
I'm not sure that I was in on discussion of that, so I can't say for sure.
Okay. Nobody's committing. All right, that's fine.
That was all based upon the documentation that I had read and feedback from when we had done some
submissions to the state.
Submissions sometime last year.
Very good. Time leave and K12E test reports enhancements. On time leave and K12E test reports, store all the parameters, not just those in the top section. If parameters cannot be stored, okay, so I know what that was. So that was coming from Rowan, that was coming from one of our North Carolina districts, and it was coming from Allie, one of our consultants was reporting this. And this applied to, I think, the time test report, so forth, but I think it kind of manifests itself just in this report alone. So what we're finding is that they want us to add more options here. I think particularly employee location and class code. They were running this test report, and again, they're paying, I don't know how many employees, 7,000 employees, tremendous number. And so it's easier for them to run this test report and say, give me just all this high school. That I'm guessing that's what they were doing, Linda, right? They were probably saying maybe give all the teachers maybe, and then they'll do all the non-teachers.
Their payroll team has things separated by building.
Oh, okay.
One gal takes, these buildings, another gal takes these buildings, another gal takes these buildings.
Gotcha. So what we were finding is that if you don't, in a report object, if you don't list these fields explicitly, you can, of course, draw them down and put them there. So if I hit an add filter and go ahead and do it, I can do it. But what we were finding is that when they ran it again, that it was just gone. It wasn't saved. And so they had to then add the filter again, add the field again, put in their new filter, and hit run. And they were really getting tired of that. So on this report, and I can't remember which other reports, I know it's the time test reports, we did the same thing, so that the kinds of things that they were typically wanting to filter by would stay there and stay filtered, and it would make it more efficient for them running this report successive times in a batch, in a cycle. So that's what we were trying to accomplish in 1165, all about efficiency there. We add the fund as an option to the available columns on the fixed asset list page. That's very simple, but seems to help some people. 1203, enhancements to allow HR benefit counselors to update a selected school's data in the ERC on behalf of the employee. Enhancement. 1203 is marked in our other document. We do have a field. This gives me all my notes I need. Dan worked on this. Thank you, Dan. Maybe you'll have to pay a little attention now because I might need some help, but I think I got most of this. So we have a setup field first and foremost that allows employee impersonation. That's important. So for this is what we're trying to do is allow an employee to walk into the HR office and the HR representative to sit down with that person on their computer, being the HR person's computer, and log into the web client, but yet trick the system to pretend that it's actually the person sitting in the chair next to them. And that's what we're calling employee impersonation. We don't want the HR person to get the login and all that. We're really just trying to get it so that it's kind of hook or crook. It's kind of done behind the scenes in kind of an interesting way. So it's not really a login change at all. It's really more of an impersonation change. So you have to allow this feature. Once you do allow this feature, then you got to launch the web client, because otherwise this next part won't be relevant. So I will go ahead and do that now as we're sitting here. And I should have probably already warmed up my web client. It's gone to sleep. Hopefully it'll wake up. It needs a cup of coffee. There we go. Yes, I see my caps lock is on. Thank you. So the way that you, the HR representative, impersonates the person sitting next to them is that they first, after they bring this up, and they're logging in themselves, they're just logging in with their own login, and this is their data at this point. They go to the staff directory. And they go find whoever they want. I'm going to go ahead and just hit next and find my very good friend Melissa Clark. I'm always mucking with Melissa. So anyway, so I'm on Melissa Clark, and I want to impersonate her. Trust me, I really do want to impersonate her. And I'm going to hit Start Impersonate. These two options do not appear unless you've checked that checkbox. So you can test that, but again, if it's not checked, then make sure that you're not seeing those buttons. If you are seeing those buttons, then something's weird. So when we start that, it pops up a message saying you are now impersonating Melissa Clark, I'm sorry. And go to the Role Center. And now if I go to demographics, who am I looking at? I'm looking at Melissa. Okay, I can go everywhere with Melissa. I can change everything for her. I can submit. I can do all kinds of evil things. This is not something you want to give.
Request time off, put in my time sheet.
Yes, ask for a raise for her, or maybe actually a demotion,
yes.
Whatever. And as time goes on, we will do personal actions. And mainly this is built for benefit enrollment. The idea is that you just open enrollment and you're creating some office hours for employees to just come in and work with you on helping them get through benefit enrollment, right? So that's the primary reason that we want it to be like that. Notice that we have this over here. I don't know if you noticed that, but look at that. So that tells us that we're impersonating, and we kind of hope you'll see that. When you end the impersonation, you just simply come back to Staff Directory, and you actually say, I'm ending the impersonation. And if you go back to home again, it should put your name back in, and you're off and running. What do you guys think of that? Was that interesting or not?
That's cool.
I think it's cool. I follow Melissa. This is why we want to impersonate Melissa, because she thinks that's cool.
That was a good one. That was a very good one. Well,
that's very helpful.
She's very fun to impersonate, let me tell you.
Sure, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was something that we felt was important. We never realized how much counseling goes on with HR departments, particularly during benefit enrollment, right? And so this is something that we're learning together is that, if we want to be in this area, this is something that you have to do when you get to benefit enrollment. Because benefit enrollment is kind of like the hardest thing for employees to understand how to do, right? W-4, they get direct deposit. They kind of gotten that, and how to pick up their paycheck, of course. But when you get to benefit enrollment, it's a little bit more complicated than the average thing. And you're talking maybe, employees that aren't, the most, computer savvy, if you will. That's probably the understatement of the day. So this is a way to sort of bridge that gap, we feel. And it's really pretty simple. And Dan, you did a wonderful job there. Nice job. So
from an auditor standpoint, this is awesome because you cannot edit anything in here. So when they say, okay, you have full usership, well, they may have a unique username and password. Our auditors will like this feature that you can say, you have, like you said, that employee sitting next to you in the HR department. You can log on, read, show them how to get through the screens and everything like that. This is good from an auditing standpoint as well.
Yeah, we hope so. All right, so I'm moving on. 1347, doing a time check, 227. We're still got some, I think, work orders we can get through. Purchase invoice import enhancements. This one is one that's been documented. Very nice, Bill. You're doing a wonderful job. I got to go find it now because I got a few pages on what I just did. All righty then. One thing I forgot on the allow personations. You do also get to determine what parts of the ERC can be impersonated. So I just want to show a little bit of a setup here under Application Setup, Employee Resource Center, Request Types. There's a new field that Dan added called Allow Impersonation, and so all ours are checked. So if you just, let's just say, did something like this, okay? So that would be an example where you're only allowing, the only thing they can click on, they'll get errors otherwise while they're impersonating, they can only do open enrollment. So we're reducing the scope of even what they can even get into. So little safety measure there. All right, and these are not checked. So, once you turn this on, nothing's going to be allowed until you check at least one. All right, purchase invoice import I thought was an interesting one. It's located over at subtract activity, and it's right here. Is that right? No, it's purchase order update. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah, I remember this one. So this one I thought was interesting. This actually came from a non-K-12 customer, SEO Family Services, a company that uses the K-12 based system out of Long Island. And what they wanted, interesting enough, is you guys know how we can do a flat-based purchase order, just a flat amount, no quantity, and maybe we would encumber those funds for the whole year, and then we're just going to get invoice after invoice after invoice. It's kind of taking down that clump of money. Well, the idea here is that you could have the AP department or even somebody outside the AP department just generate a CSV or a text file or an Excel originally and then make it a CSV with just those following columns. The following columns would be the purchase order number, the vendor invoice number, the posting date, the document date, what line number it's connected to. And you do need to know what your line numbers are, and you might have multiple lines on that PO, and an amount. And so it's a way to sort of quickly and kind of on an automated way suck in a ton of dollars to take down out of your encumbrance and put into your actual column, especially if you've checked this checkbox right here. So it's a way to sort of take a flat amount invoice. It can be for the whole amount of, miscellaneous maintenance supplies, all going to one account string, all encumbered, and they're just going to Walmart or whatever. They could just come back and fill out a spreadsheet and just once a week, once a month, boom, just take the spreadsheet, save it, process it in one keystroke, just email it really to the AP department. They could just process it and it's done. So it gets full audit trail, obviously, because it's creating multiple invoices each time. But I think it's just it's a nice functionality as a way to sort of decentralize and provide another way to sort of take down these big clumpy dollars that are put in the beginning of the year to encumber a very large amount. We're seeing more and more of that where people are trying to encumber almost their entire general ledger, both payroll and AP, beginning of the year, and then take down these dollars in an efficient manner. How efficient can we make it? Can we automate the processes? And this is a nice another feature to be able to automate that process. Does that make any sense to anybody on this call? Nope, none. We'll be interested to see if this gets good play. But I do think it's an interesting thing. Again, you have to be doing. I think you can't really be doing anything. I mean, it says quantity-based POs, but we don't have any quantity there, do we? Or is the amount considered the quantity? It says quantity and flat-based. I'm just not sure. I guess what happens is that amount really is the quantity to receive. So that amount is really amount/quantity to receive. So in theory, I guess you could do something relative to a quantity-based PO, and that amount just becomes the quantity received. But it's really mainly designed for flat amount POs. 1354, time, leave journal, leave entry with cause of absence doc, problem with calculated doc amounts when units entered prior to cause of absence. So we had an issue of what order we put things in. Linda, I don't know if you know much about this one. If the cause of absence is entered before the number of units, then the absence code is correctly prorated on a partial day. But if the units are entered prior to the cause of absence, the payroll amount is not correct, not calculated correctly. Many times it is 4 times. It's just not correct. So I guess the fix was to add a recalculation when the leave control code is changed. Yeah, so in other words, what basically happened is that no matter what you do now, if you put your cause of absence in and then put your units in, or you put your units in and go, oh, that's the wrong cause of absence, you go fix the cause of absence, it fixes the data and the document amount correctly. We missed that. That was a bug, and that's been fixed. So that's a small little thing, but important thing. And again, we hadn't probably tested that all the way through, and therefore we missed it. But that has been fixed. Employee time analysis features, create generalized calendar-oriented look-back functionality to be used in ACA reporting. Is this not really done, 1402, Melissa? I mean, I'm just not sure where I would see employee time analysis feature enhancement. Do you know where that?
I think that's part of the workspace, that time worked. I'm not quite sure.
Bill, you got anything else on 1402 for me?
I think it's really more of a behind-the-scenes kind of thing.
There may be. I know there was a lot of like functions and stuff that were created to help with the determination of whether or not someone was full-time or part-time. I don't know if that was part of that.
But we really haven't delivered that fully in this release. You were saying that to us earlier.
Right.
So,
it's only that work, the time worked.
It's
time
this
worked
thing
summary
here.
Workspace is kind of demo ready, but it's not quite fully there.
So we will kind of hold off on that one and see it more when you guys do a full-blown presentation when all that stuff is complete.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go too much in. All right, 1417 I know very well because I wrote all this. 1417 doesn't have any more documentation than this. All right, so what we and I'm trying to think if there's any setups I need to show you guys. I don't know. Do you have my completion email, Bill? Do I have any setups at all that I need to show them on this, or just need to talk about it with them? Can't remember.
I'll look.
Okay, is this electronic here? Let me see. Electronic. I need document numbers in there. Yeah, I think I do. I just don't know where I'm at, so it's kind of hard to figure out what to do here. Let me see.
It's electronic. It's the column to the far right, looks like.
Yeah, I just don't know if I'll be able to avoid. Oh, look, I can. That's nice. So I've got, in this example, I've got two vendors. I've got 3 lines for vendor A, 1 line for vendor B. When we suggest vendor payments, there's a checkbox that says create 1 line per vendor. And that's what we call summarized. And when it's not clicked, it's not summarized. And generally, we don't summarize. We generally don't click this. What we find, though, is when you do electronic and you don't click this, you get multiple lines for vendor A and then multiple lines for vendor B and so forth. Then, out of the box, the way it was working, when you've suggested, in a sense, not summarized, the system, line by line by line, generates a separate record in the ACH file and sends a separate email remittance. Therein lies the problem. So the problem was that the vendor gets bank service charges for every deposit they're getting. So let's say it's 7 invoices. They're getting like 7 times whatever that charge is. And of course, they're getting pretty antsy and angry about that. So they don't mind being paid, but they want to be paid in one lump sum for all the invoices being paid. Furthermore, they wanted the email remittance to be summarized. So what happened is that we needed to come in here, and oh, by the way, often, depending on your interfund setup and so forth, the system would allow you to suggest summarized. So that was even the worst thing. But beyond that, for the AP operator, even if it would allow you to do summarized, we were worried that they just would not do that. They would forget to do that, whatever. So I think we decided, regardless if they go unsummarized, let's summarize for them. So that's what mainly 1417 was really all about. So at this point, if I do come in here and go export, let's see what happens. Jenna, today's date. I got to watch these dates here. Let me just change my dates here. Okay. Export, today's date. Okay. So when it produces the PDF, because it does produce a PDF, it is the email remittances, you'll see one, and you can see there it's put all 3 together, $22,000. And then if I come in here, there'll be a second one. So that's correct. That wasn't the way it worked before. That is a change. Furthermore, if I actually go to the file on the hard drive, to the direct deposit folder, and look at it, I see that Smitty has just got the 22,000 in there, and Texas Instruments got his 5,000. So again, 2 lines in the ACH file. Okay. When I actually email these guys out, and hopefully I don't really do it. One thing that we also had an issue with, and I'm just seeing if that email comes to me in a second, I will bring it up, but I just have to wait. Sometimes it takes a second. We also had a second issue, and quite honestly, I think it's done in a separate work order, but I'm going to talk about it now, and I can just skip over it when I get to it, is furthermore, and I'm getting the emails now. So I'm getting probably both emails. Let me see. Go back to inbox. Yeah, of course I get it. So let's see if this is the Smitty one. So email, Men's advised, you've been paid electronically, da-da-da, da-da-da. So this I want to talk about, this thanks. Where's that coming from? Notice this, the name, and then where it's coming from. So this is like, well, that's interesting. Where's that coming from? So I need to show you some setups to control that. And this should be the PDF that hopefully has the 3 combined, which it is. Of course, you don't see it, but I do. Now you do as well. Okay, so I just kind of show you how that all works. So that's all proper. Then, of course, you do transmit and post. Nothing's changed there. So the only thing to understand is that people complained because the email was always coming from the AP operator. It was taking their email address from their user setup card. Didn't like that. Secondly, it was actually using MAPI. And MAPI means that it's using email client, that's physical software on the PC. Some people don't have that. They're just getting their email from a web screen or something. So they don't even have a MAPI client technically, or whether it's Outlook or something else. So because of that, we built a secondary way, optionally, okay, and this is important, optionally, to use the SMTP service. The SMTP service is what we leverage for all our workflow. The question is, why can't we leverage that for the AP remittances? So that's what we've done in this as well. And it's not technically in 1417. It might be in another one, Bill. I can't even remember at this point. But I think it's still good enough to show the setups in it. And here are the setups. And you'll see that we've got multiple setups. This email remittances is what we're going to look at now. This email documents will be a future discussion. This is not going to be part of your 15th release. It's going to be part of your 16th release, where Melissa and I are cooking up some big time changes for emailing vendors automatically in a really cool way. So we're really doing some really wonderful stuff there, but I won't steal my own thunder. We're going to go to email remittances. So this tab you will see, and in here you have some setups. Okay, you get to pick which method. So that's the 2 methods. It'll default to MAPI. So you really do want to switch it to SMTP in my opinion. You have an email subject, which you can put. That's the subject of the email. And the body. This body, I'm using HTML tags. You can only use HTML with SMTP. NAV doesn't allow us to do it with MAPI. So that's another benefit of using SMTP and so forth. So anyway, you've been paid electronically. And this is just a, what's that, Holly? BR is break row? No, that's what's it stand for? Break, I guess, I don't know. It's another row.
It's line break.
Line break, yeah, line break. Yeah, so line break for this line, then one more line break for this line, one more line, this one more line, one more, you can see what it's doing. So that's an example. Bill, it might be nice to get a snippet of that, I don't know, to them. I don't know if we have this separately, but it's nice for them to see that. Okay, secondly, you can now indicate if you are using SMTP, because if you're using MAPI, we can't actually intervene in terms of who's sending it. But if you're using SMTP, you can put the sender's name and the sender's email. And oh, by the way, when you send these out, since it's happening by a service now, and it's not going into their sent folder on their client because it's not using their client, would you like to send these email remittances to a CC box or a BCC? BCC, again, is only supported on SMTP. It's not supported on Carbon. It's not supported on MAPI. So again, nice capabilities there. I think that concludes everything I wanted to say about what we did here, but we felt that this was a very important piece of work. At least, of course, I'm saying that because I've worked on it, but I'm teasing. But I think it was important to save really the vendor relationship, because they were getting very irritated with getting all those bank service charges. So that's 1417.
Andrew?
Yes, yes, sir.
Work order 1612 is the emailing.
So if we run ahead to 1612, I'll mark that one off too. Email remittance advices from AP Journal needs the SMTP service, and that's where on that second document you have documented those screenshots. Thank you, Bill. So I'm just going to mark 1612 off, but again, just so you know, that was 1612 that we also covered. And I just felt like it made sense to cover them together since I know they're connected. Okay, let's pull a time, 2:42, we're in good shape. Web client ERC profile, add the task group from the financial page to the available options for the role center ribbon.
That was for customizing the role center, so if people weren't using payroll, we could take off all of the ERC specific stuff and just give them the those 4 or 5 financial tasks.
Yeah, so I think it was, but I think it's the role center that we call. Let me go into profiles, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. So we enhance the profile that I think is connected just to this dude here, right? Find this value. Let me just do a little. Did I do a lookup there? Yeah. So let's see something real quick. Is there no lookup there? Oh, come on, guys.
Doesn't look like it.
Well, no, it is. It's just
slow.
Well, it's not going to where I want it to go. It's 3708 because it has to build a temp table. So it's like building a temp table. 6202 LU role center. Yeah, so we have a profile called limited user. The limited user role center, when you go onto the web client, there was no way to see those actions like approval processing, the inquiry ones and all that. They weren't showing in the ribbon. The ribbon was kind of like basically naked. And so we've added it to those ribbons basically is what we did. So anyway, it was a slight aesthetic thing. I guess Dan is using that. You must have users that are not using the self-service but using the limited user for the financial side only.
I think that's breakthrough.
Okay, and so that's where that came from. So we've made that role center a cleaner, more aesthetically pleasing role center. That's really what we were doing in this work order, 1423. ERC restrict users to their own receipts. So I think that actually was not a new setup, Dan. I think it's just you just made it do it basically. So I think what we're saying is that in the role center, when we get to here and we get to receipts, if the employee is already separately restricted to only see their POs, they now only see their receipts. I think that's really what it was, Dan, right? I mean, I don't know if you recall that, but that's my memory of it.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So that's just a nuance there. We didn't have any no setups, but that's just something that we applied. It was kind of a logical thing. If the district's saying you only can see your POs, why are you seeing other people's receipts or potential POs to do receipts against? It's a better way to put that. Okay, complete standardization of check configuration fields from bank card. This is work that I think Mohammed has been working on pretty much half his life. And these are pretty important setups. They're gotten more and more important over time. And these are all these check format setups I'm showing right here. So I think what we found, and tell me if I'm right, Mohammed, I don't know if you're listening to this, but there was just some inconsistency across some of our reports. And so you were going in there confirming that there was consistency across every single one of our check reports for these configuration settings.
Not all reports have every single one of these features. Some have and some don't. So we compiled a list of what reports can have. So, and some reports don't print everything because of these space limitations.
Okay.
So we have a nice chart that explains which report has what feature.
Okay. Is that chart in Meta's hands?
It's in that highlights document.
Okay. All right. So it's in that highlights document?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So again, you should have it in that email, guys. If not, let us know. Okay. 1442, report to state fields are not being picked up in the EMIS financial records. That was something probably, Holly, you discovered during the time when submissions were occurring. And so we were basically saying that like an object dimension, we used a new dimension 478, but really we report that to the state as 475. So we had the report to filled in, but it wasn't picking it up in the code itself, and so that needed to be enhanced. Does that pretty much sound about right?
Yes, that does sound right.
Okay. Or am I just making that up? No, I'm just teasing. All right. Add retirement error related checks. It will give an error if the exclude from retirement is checked. Okay. I'm not sure what we were doing there, but I think what's happening is that we were providing errors when the exclude from retirement reporting, exclude from retirement reporting is checked. We shouldn't be checking, and maybe we were. I think that's maybe what was going on in that work order. I'm not sure who did that. Mohammed, is that familiar to you, or is that something that Kevin did? I don't know.
I think it's Kevin.
Yeah. Is Kevin on this call, by the way? Nobody see him?
I think so.
Okay, I'm not looking at the call thing right now. Employee W-2 data view. All right, so when currently the W-2s from the employee list page is open, it should open to. Okay, so that went out with the last release, and we were not thrilled with that, so we kind of fixed that. Is that right, Melissa?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So what we were finding is that when you came to, let's say, a navigation, and you said, give me under entries the W-2s, it was kind of just dropping you into like
the current year or
current
something.
year, and you could like go up and down, left and right. So we really want to bring you to the list page. The only thing that I would recommend maybe down the line is that we really sort it like that, right? I mean, that's how it should be sorted, because you really always want the most current one at the top, because you don't want it to go below a folder at some point,
right.
You know? So you really should be there. And this is not allowed. So did we add this checkbox at that point as well?
Yes.
So can I view it? So I can view it, but I can't edit it unless I have that checkbox on user setup checked.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
So
we would prefer that nobody edit.
Thank you. Officially, that's our official K12 stance.
Yeah, I mean that W-2 detail is built from the posted payroll ledger entry data, which you cannot edit. So if you have to do a correction on W-2 stuff, you should be doing a journal entry through the payroll journal to correct the posted data. But due to lots of requests and complaining, people wanted to be able to just edit the W-2 data directly. It's not recommended that you do that, however, because you've completely lost your audit trail from the posted payroll ledger data.
But as an example, just a simple example, let's just say third-party sick pay, or let's say statutory employee need to be checked, or retirement plan wasn't checked, right?
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that there's no harm, no foul. Or let's just say the search number was wrong, whatever, no harm. You know, we don't want to regenerate the stuff. We just want to keep it simple. I can see why in those kinds of scenarios, it's like, that seems reasonable.
Yeah,
one thing that I would recommend that you guys think about, though, for just audit purposes, is to think about the change log. You could turn the change log on for these tables. It's basically two tables, employee W-2 and employee W-2 detail. And those are the two tables that you could go ahead and turn change log on. And that
I would track modify only, not the insert. Otherwise, you're going to get a ton of records when you print the W-2.
Yes, I would concur with that recommendation. It's a good recommendation. Modify only, because the modifies should not be happening, but the inserts should. So I agree. Okay, so that was 1477, and again, there's a setup there that allows that. As you saw, I couldn't get in. I know I saw it set up earlier, so I'm not going to go over to it. Import employee rates. We had an infinite loop when the value substitution matching record not found. I saw that. I don't know what that substitution record is. If maybe somebody on this call knows, that would help. It's over here in this dude right here. And so can I just get a little bit of a sense of what this means? Does anybody know what this means?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've touched on it, though. I'm sorry. What was happening, it was going through an infinite loop when you would run it. And it would error out every time you imported it. It was seeing certain characters incorrectly, I believe.
Because what is it doing?
That's really about all I remember on it.
Yeah, I don't understand the purpose of it. Do you have any idea, Linda, what's going on there?
I think the idea there was that you get a rate file from an outside provider or whatever, and our code that we've set up from a payroll perspective is not exactly the same as theirs. So you can set up a substitution rule to where, if it sees Fred, it's going to translate to Mickey.
Oh, that's weird. Look at that.
No, that's not good.
Yeah, I don't know why that.
I would agree with that. That's what that's for, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah,
It is what it's for. You're correct.
Yeah.
More
Yeah,
my
I can
memory's
tell.
coming back on it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can sort of tell as well, just based on what table it's in and so forth. Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is this is not a value of a payroll rate code, but it's actually a substitution logic plan. Is
Yes.
really what it's talking to. So yeah, to me, I probably would have called it,
Yeah,
maybe
we
something
need to change
different.
the label a
To
little bit so
terminate,
it's
yeah,
more
it doesn't.
clear.
Yeah, exactly. That was not clear to me.
Not clear.
So anyway, but that's interesting to know that we are beginning to get into things at that level. I think what we've had in the past is, hey, district, get it from your provider, go to Excel, do all the substitution in Excel, create a clean one that matches our payroll rate codes and bring it in, right? That's kind of what we've been doing, what we've been expecting. But I guess we're going to the next level now.
When you have a lot of rates, it kind of gets confusing. So
Yeah, well, yeah. Again, you just got to make sure this
with all the changing. So.
But the setup has to be right too. I mean, you got a lot more setup.
Yes.
Vendor merge not working. Change vendor merge to allow the operator that decided that these two vendor numbers are duplicates and the record should be merged. Decide which duplicated information is good and is to be kept. I think we decided not to do it that way. Yeah, I don't think that's what we decided to do. I don't think this work order got there that way. I think that, and I just need to look at it real quick, sorry, but I just don't think that's what happened. Alrighty. Actually, I think it comes up no matter what now, so I think I can just run it for you and you'll see the message. All right. So let's go AP. I don't know where it is. I never know where this is, so I'm just going to type merge vendors. Okay. And I'll pick some vendor and some vendor randomly and hit OK. There you go. If tables related to the from and to vendor, for instance, the vendor bank account, vendor remit to address, etc., have the same key values for the field code, like default or code or whatever, an error will occur when you proceed. You will need to resolve the conflict by deleting or renaming the related data for either the from or to vendor. Once resolved, the vendor merge can be rerun successfully. And the reason I felt very strong about this is that for the system to make the decision, so I've got two vendors in there and they have vendor bank accounts, and maybe the vendor bank accounts are the same and they have the same code, fine, but maybe not. Well, how does the program supposed to know that vendor A has got the right vendor bank account and vendor B has the wrong one or vice versa? It has no way to know that. So we need you, not you being Meta, but you being the AP operator to make that determination. So these are setup tables. These are not transaction tables. So basically what we're saying to the AP operator is delete the setup record, the child setup record, from the one that is not valid. And we don't care if it's the from or the to. It makes no difference. Whichever one is the one that you want to survive, just go ahead and delete the other one. If they're exactly the same, I don't care, delete one, just pick one. But we're making you make that decision. We're not making the decision for you. That was why this way this is worded is not correct. So all we really did is we popped up this message, and that was it. And so the error occurs. Again, it's a natural error. The error is clear to me. It's very clear. And it tells you which table and what the value is that it's trying to get it's getting a duplicate for, and you just got to deal with it. So anyway, that's all I'll say about that. I just felt like that was a safer way to handle it. I know, Linda, you and I talked about that. Misspelling of ninth on Emeth. How do we spell ninth? Was it just had two double quotes or whatever? Whatever. I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm just going to go right past that one. Payroll journal, additional online error checks on pay cycle information. Yeah, I remember working on that one. We're doing all kinds of checking to make sure that there's not blank cycles or invalid cycles or all kinds of weird things. So we're just looking a lot more at the cycles now to make sure that the pay cycle code, the pay cycle term, pay cycle periods are just clean as a whistle before we give you a clean bill of health. Yeah, so anyway, need AP, ACH, due from invoices. Wow, who did that?
North Carolina, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Allie, maybe?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the one you did that.
I did the
Andrew.
work.
Yeah, you did the work.
Don't
it's
you
like,
remember?
It's like the payroll on the payroll side where you're creating the due to due from invoices for when I do ACH processing on the AP side, because it's all coming out of the ACH is all coming out of local funds, and
Oh,
so
ACH, ACH.
yeah,
Yeah. I kind of, golly, I don't hardly remember that. Did anybody test that?
I have no idea. I think I think Allie did, but I'm not sure about that. I'm
Okay.
not sure it's been
All right.
tested fully.
There is the checkbox that turns the feature on, and there is the interfund vendor number. That field also, those fields kind of appear also in the payroll side. Payroll side is used for the payroll liabilities. Here, it's really being used for not invoices, because invoices are distributed. So since they're distributed, it's a non-issue. The issue is purely ACH. And the reason ACH is an issue is because ACH by definition has to go through one checking account. You're sending one file, right? I mean, you could do multiple ACHs, right, Linda? I mean, you could.
You could.
But we don't do that because we're not allowed to send in North Carolina an ACH file through the state bank account. So we have to use our local bank account for ACH. And so because of that limitation, North Carolina then what that in essence does is they need the money transferred, really transferred. So what the system does at the end of the process after you post, I believe, right, Linda, it goes out and says, okay, 2 is local 2. I can't remember. I think it's 2, right?
It is. Mm-hmm.
So 2 just got a bunch of money, and some of that was for 1 and for 8 and whatever. And so it sends invoices over to those guys to pay me back, pay 2 back, to basically give me back the cash. I want my cash.
Right.
And, so
and it clears out the due to due from.
Right, clears the due to from, and then all they have to do then is then suggest vendor payments, cut the checks, go deposit them in real bank accounts and record a deposit. That's a hell of a lot of workflow if you ask me, but they require that because cash is king in North Carolina, and I'll move on now. Okay, as it is in Ohio,
Andrew,
by the way.
You're at your 3 o'clock.
Oh, I am? Yeah, that's a good point. So let's just see where I'm at. So 1541, I always like to sort of weigh this. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We have been busy. Well, this may be a threefer. We might need 3 sessions. Okay.
You will need 3 sessions for this.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I'm looking at calendars. Okay. So you guys looking at calendars? So we need we need session number 2. I'll put it just number 2 on there. Should I say 2 and 3?
While we're looking at calendars, real quick, when will this 15 release be put into our test database?
Bill?
As soon as we're comfortable with, we've had enough testing done on our side that we can.
But do you have a guesstimate for her?
Is it not in test already in the cloud?
No, it's not. It's only tests here at K12.
The only reason I ask is I'd like to get some screenshots for W2 magnetic media files with some instructions off to our districts.
Bill, I would push it out to test.
Yeah, there's no harm in pushing it to any test environment, right? Because I think the more people that can test it, now that we're distributing this information, the better we'll all be. Because then we can close some loops and fix whatever we need to fix. I guess the question is, so again, it can be quickly. Bill worked behind the scenes on that. But my question is timing-wise. Okay, timing-wise, I'm out until Wednesday morning. So I am free Wednesday morning at a 10 o'clock slot, or Thursday at a 10 o'clock slot, or Friday at a 10 o'clock slot. This is next week I'm talking about. But you guys, I think, are on site somewhere in Meta, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We're with Dan on site. Most of us are on site until Wednesday afternoon. I think Thursday the 10th is when someone from your area is going to do a demo for W2s and such.
Well, that I don't know. It's not on your calendar already?
It's not, only because we were going to have to register. I think Tina was talking about something about the fee. We were just going to have one group to watch it, and they were making some arrangements so we could see that. And I think that's on the 10th, but please forgive me. I don't know what time that is.
It is at 2 o'clock on the 10th.
Thanks, Linda.
That's 2 o'clock on the 10th, so 10 o'clock would be fine.
Okay.
All right,
10's good with me, Angela. 10 o'clock on the 10th, or 10 o'clock on the 10th. Is that good for you for the next